trapped in a snow-covered storage locker. Betrayed by a 911 dispatcher, a mother fights for survival while racing against time and a broken system to save herself and her children from a relentless pursuer.
Teri Jendusa-Nicolai, 38, has survived the unthinkable. Her ex-husband David Larson tried to murder her by beating her with a baseball bat.
Teri and David were longtime friends before they got married. David was formerly working with a marine company. He was said to be fun-loving and family-oriented, but also controlling. They later got married and gave birth to 2 daughters. Not long into the marriage, David's attitude changed, and another dimension of him was revealed. He started maltreating his wife, Teri. This became a serious cause for concern for Teri as mistreatment became the norm in their relationship. It soon became evident that her husband had camouflaged all along before their marriage, and was now showing his true self. Teri recounted that the initial instance of mistreatment occurred during their honeymoon. He mistreated her on several occasions, declaring, "You'll do what I say, we're married now." In other instances, he would mistreat her and assert, "You're important to me." He demanded that his wife leave the door open when she bathed or used the restroom. Teri, fearful of his explosive reactions to accidents, like breaking a glass, disposed of any evidence by tossing it into their neighbor's waste bin. David berated her for misplaced or improperly folded curtains, and on another occasion, retrieved a freezer-burned sausage link from the trash, accusing her of wasting his money. Teri, angered, retorted that she would cook it for him if that's what he desired. One night, David came home in a rage, and one of her daughters told Teri that it was time to leave the house. An argument ensued on another night over spaghetti. Teri was preparing dinner when her husband demanded that she put the noodles away before they got spoiled. Teri quipped, "Do you want to eat dinner or not?" David answered and said it doesn't matter if what he said was right or wrong, she must comply. The argument escalated, leading Teri to rush down the basement stairs. However, she couldn't escape outside as David had locked the doors with his keys. Finding refuge in the basement box, she contemplated that divorce might be her only means of escape. As Teri cowers in the basement, she discovers a truth revealing David's sinister past. But as she plans her escape, a chilling revelation hints at David's looming revenge with danger lurking at every turn. To seek a way out, Teri initiated divorce proceedings. The divorce was finalized on January 31st, 2001. It was reported that after the divorce, David walked out of the courtroom crying. "You're going to regret this," David said to Teri. "I never took the threat seriously so long we were divorced," Teri said. Teri rediscovered her life and got married to a wonderful man, Nicolai, who loved her and her daughters. After the divorce, David brought up a legal battle with Teri. They both were fighting for the full custody of their daughters. "David was violent towards me, and I wouldn't want him to be alone with the kids," Teri argued. Nevertheless, the court was pleased with the fact that the father wanted to spend time with his children. David didn't stop being unkind and aggressive towards Teri whenever she dropped off or picked up her daughters. It was reported that the situation got so bad that Teri began insisting they exchange kids in public places. On a Saturday morning, which was supposed to be the 3rd anniversary of Teri Jendusa's divorce from David Larson, she went to pick up her 2 little girls when she walked into a setup. On the day Teri was kidnapped, she met David, who was uncharacteristically calm. Teri asked for her children, and David said they were playing hide-and-seek and that they wanted her to find them. "I never wanted to, but didn't want to disappoint my kids," she said. She stepped into the house in search of her kids. As soon as she walked in, David hit her on the head with a baseball bat. "You mentioned I've been mistreating you. This is what mistreatment is all about," David said. Teri drifted in and out of consciousness, but she remembered David swinging the wooden baseball bat 15 to 20 times. David duct taped her hands, feet, and mouth, placed her in a garbage can, and started torturing her. As hope wanes and despair threatens to engulf her, Teri Jendusa's resilience ignites a daring escape plan. Teri was driven by Larson from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to Wheeling, Illinois, while she remained imprisoned in the trash can in the bed of his pickup. Larson allegedly rolled the plastic container into the yard and filled it with snow, exposing Teri to a challenging situation, injuries, the harsh cold, and leaving her alone to confront a dire fate at the hands of her ex-husband. "I thought I was never going to make it," she said. David never knew that Teri still had her phone with her. In pain, she managed to call the dispatchers, but they responded by saying, "Are you having trouble breathing?" I continued saying David's address, she said. After about 3 hours, Nick, who was Teri's new husband, called the police to inform them about his wife and children who were missing. He also gave the dispatcher David Larson's address to search, and they recognized it. They reported that a breathless woman had placed a call to 911 and given the same address earlier. Deputies went to the property, but they couldn't find her. They asked questions to David's neighbors, who said they saw him towing Teri's car in the morning. Later, Teri placed a second call to 911, providing essential information to local authorities. She told them her name, talked about David, her ex-husband, who was causing harm, and mentioned she was in the back of his green pickup truck, but she never mentioned her daughters. Immediately, detectives went back to David's home, hoping they'd find her daughters. Upon arrival, they discovered compelling evidence that intensified the urgency of the case. Black sweatpants matching Nick's description of Teri's attire that day, a sizable blood stain on the carpet, and an empty handgun case. Nearly 100 law enforcement officers pursued leads in the case. Volunteers unfamiliar with Teri dedicated the entire afternoon, scouring the unfinished neighborhood in search of her. Police anticipated David's report to his job as an air traffic controller following an unproductive Amber Alert. Upon his arrival, there were no signs of Teri or her daughters in David's car. The officers told him his ex-wife was missing. They asked him if he could come to the station to help them with the search. Chris Schmeling and Thomas Knaus spent 6.5 hours questioning David. David told them straight away that Teri hadn't come to pick up their daughters. He said he dropped the kids at his girlfriend's house before going to work. The authorities moved swiftly to check the location and found the children there, where they mentioned they hadn't seen their mom that day. It was reported that Schmeling begged and talked with David out of respect, stating time was of utmost importance if they were to find Teri alive. Detectives made it known that they found Teri's pants and blood in David's house. David got emotional as he was called on his lies, Schmeling said. He claimed he was attacked by Teri and responded in self-defense. Authorities already had enough evidence to detain him. Detectives confiscated David's personal belongings, including his wallet packed with business cards and receipts. They also discovered a card for the storage facility near the town where he had a storage unit. A phone call confirmed he visited a storage unit that morning, and Teri was later located by police officers in the corner of that unit. When Teri was finally found, her body temperature was 86 degrees Fahrenheit, and the doctor reported that she was within an hour of dying. Unfortunately, the fetus in her belly was no longer viable. Due to the crushing injury to her skull, authorities feared that moving her from the trash can would lead to increased damage. Teri's fight for redemption ignites a firestorm of truth and consequence, where the verdict will echo far beyond the confines of the law.
Now at 10, her ex-husband beat her, tortured her, and left her for dead. Tonight, Teri Jendusa-Nicolai begins a new fight, keeping her ex in prison from seeing their children.
David Larson was indicted by a federal grand jury on a Tuesday in August 2005. He was indicted for kidnapping and domestic violence in the alleged abduction and attempted murder of Teri, his ex-wife. Larson, during the indictment, was held in federal custody without bail on federal charges. He was also hit with 4 state charges filed in Racine County Circuit Court. Prosecutors made it known that David's former wife, Teri, 38, who was from Wind Lake in Racine County, was attacked with a baseball bat when she went to pick up their 2 daughters from David's house. A $1 million bail was set on those charges, which included attempted homicide and 2 counts of obstructing child custody. After several investigations and arguments by the jury, on August 15, 2005, David was sentenced to 37 years in prison for attempted first-degree intentional homicide. In August 2007, Larson was sentenced to life imprisonment by U.S. District Judge Rudolph Randa based on his conviction for kidnapping and domestic violence. It was reported that Larson appealed against the court's verdict at the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals by saying Randa's sentence was unreasonable. He contended that the criminal statute applied in his prosecution was unconstitutional and raised concerns about facing double jeopardy. He asserted that he underwent prosecution in both state and federal courts, highlighting alleged illegal searches conducted by the police during their investigation. Larson's claims were rejected by Judge Diane Sykes of Milwaukee, who wrote for the 3-judge panel. She ruled that the statute was legal and that the evidence of the search was not relevant to the conviction. She stated further that double jeopardy was never an issue because federal charges are quite different from state charges. David tried to argue he didn't mean to cause specific damages suffered by his ex-wife. His argument was quickly rejected by the court, holding that it was obvious that he intended to kill her. The life imprisonment was a reasonable one for Larson, Sykes said. The weight of betrayal and turmoil crushes her spirit, sending shockwaves through her family, testing bonds and leaving scars that may never fully heal.
He beat me with a bat, dumped me in a garbage can, left me to die in a freezing cold storage locker. When I was rescued, I thought my ordeal was over.
It was reported that Teri spent about 7 weeks in the hospital receiving treatments and underwent different operations. She remained in a wheelchair for several weeks after returning home. It affected her family most, especially her children, negatively. She couldn't get upstairs to ease her daughters to sleep at night. She was, however, grateful that she and her children were still alive and would not be seeing David again.